We have a lot of NHL news to cover today, including a potential trade we may see between the Oilers and the Habs. Plus, we have further updates on the Canucks rumors that we talked about yesterday. Potential scenario where we could see the Oilers make a push to trade for Erik Karlsson. We also have trade rumors on the Seattle Kraken, Ottawa Senators, and the Buffalo Sabres. Further updates on the Mark Stone injury, the Robin Lehner bankruptcy, and more news from the NHL waivers, and some big returns from around the NHL. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade rumors to take a look at today. First up, we do have some additional news from the NHL waiver wire. The Ottawa Senators have placed forward Jacob Lucchini on waivers. Of course, he's 27 years old, got to make his NHL debut not too long ago, has now appeared in 10 games for the Sens, scoring one goal that came on a power play goal as well. Of course, after some strong two-way play for a few games, DJ Smith gave him a chance to play in the power play. He did get one power play goal, but things have certainly faded for him since. But they also have a roster spot that they needed to free up as well. Obviously, top center Josh Norris is set to make his return after missing over 30 games with a shoulder injury. Norris should make his return as the Senators return home after not a very successful road trip recently, seeing some losses in Colorado and St. Louis. Norris will be a welcome return to strengthen that top six. Like I said, unfortunately, it needs a roster spot, and Lucchini's the victim of the numbers here. So he'll go on waivers, and if he clears, he'll be reassigned back to the American Hockey League, where he was pretty close to being a point-per-game player, putting up 23 points in 25 American Hockey League contests for the Belleville Senators this year. To be honest, I wouldn't be completely shocked if he was picked up. He's a cheap option on a one-year deal. For a player who can play in a variety of spots. Like I said, he's not super young. He's an older rookie, so to speak. So, I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't be shocked to be cleared, but I wouldn't be shocked if another team maybe gave him a chance. We'll find out at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. Some other big NHL returns include that of Evander Kane with the Edmonton Oilers, returning a fair bit ahead of schedule from a nasty wrist injury after getting a cut from a skate. It was a really dangerous scary play. Obviously, Kane's a big part of that offense there in Edmonton, and he certainly has been missed. So they had to make some roster moves to kind of make some space. Jesse Puljujarvi will be scratched this evening as a healthy scratch, so we're going to talk about him a little bit further. Obviously, many have known for a while that the Oilers have looked for a trade for him. Plus, they've moved Yamamoto to a long-term injury reserve from regular IR. So, of course, that's all retroactive as well. So that'll create the necessary room for Kane. But long-term, again, to bring Yamamoto back, somebody else is going to have to go, which is why we think Puljujarvi could be dealt, which we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes' time. The Montreal Canadiens also announced a variety of roster moves and injury updates. They've recalled forwards Rem Pitlick and Raphael Harvey-Pinard, and that is because of a slew of injuries and players going on IR, including that of top overall pick from the 2022 draft rookie Juraj Slafkovsky, along with Yoel Armia and Jake Evans. Of course, Armia got a nice elbow from Jacob Trouba the other night against the New York Rangers. There was no call in the play. Trouba continues, in my opinion, to be one of the dirtier players in the game with regularly getting called. The elbow on Armia certainly looked fairly dirty, in my opinion, but we'll see. Nothing came from it with player safety. So Trouba, once again, gets no repercussions there. They've also had to place Sean Monahan from IR to long-term injury reserve as well. Of course, that's retroactive a while, so I'm not quite sure exactly when all these players are going to return, but it's a lot of stuff there for Montreal. And even though he wasn't listed as a roster change, it's also been noted that Jonathan Drouin also is dealing with something and is not going to play this evening as well. So that's a lot of veterans out for the Habs as they place to do battle with the Winnipeg Jets this evening. The New York Rangers have also sent back Ryan Carpenter down to the American Hockey League to get them back down to a 22-player NHL roster. Now, as I mentioned, some other injury updates. Mark Stone, captain of the Vegas Golden Knights, of course, missed a lot of time last year. The injury bug bit Vegas really hard, including Stone and others like Pacioretty, who was there, and of course Eichel, who they knew what they were getting into when they acquired him. But the back injury that Stone dealt with certainly was bad, and he had to get into a lot of I guess you could say different doctors and treatments and things that they even try to finish the season. He came back early, but then in the offseason was able to get whatever procedures or he needed to have done to correct things. But it is believed that he's dealing with another back injury. Now at this point, it's early to press the panic button or anything of that nature. I don't think that there's really any reason to do that. I know that Mark Stone himself has noted that he felt like a lot of the media coverage on his injuries last year was overblown. So we'll have to wait and see where this goes. But certainly because of the issues he's had before, he's listed as week to week. So it's not, like I said, a reason to panic. But I would be concerned, and we'll hope for the best here for Stone, because if he's out for any length of time, that's going to be a big, big blow to the Vegas Golden Knights roster. Of course, Robin Lehner, we talked about him the other day, going through a bankruptcy, which was surprising. When you have players making millions of dollars, it's always surprising to see somebody dealing with that type of thing, but it's happened. And of course, now we have a little bit more details on that. It's been noted that he has listed over $50 million in debts and around, I think it's around $10 million in assets. So that is a lot of debts, including some missed payments on a $1.2 million collection of rare snakes that he has. I believe that's located in Missouri. And then there's also a Wisconsin company that he's due $4 million for, and another business loan as well that's behind on payments. I believe one of them he even has, I think, with his father, might be attached to it as well. But certainly a lot of debts for a player making $5 million per season, who was making less than that before. So I don't know. I mean, a lot of times bankruptcies stem from living beyond your means. That's not always the reason. Obviously, there are other investments gone wrong, mismanagements, or sometimes there are other people involved that obviously give you bad advice or whatnot. But this is just a sad story. Robin Lehner's come a long ways, an NHL goaltender, established himself as one of the better ones across the league. Of course, dealt with a lot of mental health issues which he's overcome, and it's just a shame to see him going through this. But it certainly sounds like there was a lot of mismanagement in his companies that he had outside of hockey and his earnings from the NHL. So it's certainly a sad state of affairs from that perspective. Of course, as well, I want to remind everybody as well, our partner Fanatics still has lots of great deals on their website. Certainly would love to promote one of our partnered companies that we work a lot with here at Top Shelf Hockey. So certainly check out the pinned comment down below. There will be a shopping link where you can check out the Fanatics website. Obviously, January, there's usually all kinds of great sales on a variety of retail stuff, of course, because of the time of year now that we're past Christmas and all the spending usually does slow down a little bit. So a lot of retailers usually have a lot of great deals available. So certainly check that out. Of course, if you do buy products through our affiliate link down below, it does help support the channel. So anything you do buy through there, certainly greatly appreciated. And I recommend you check it out for all your hockey merchandise needs. Onto the trade section of the video. The Montreal Canadiens and the Edmonton Oilers might be hooking up on a deal. There's some rumblings that could be having some discussions. Oilers forward Jesse Puljujarvi's a healthy scratch tonight. He's been long rumored for about 2 years to be likely moved out of Edmonton. We know that Ken Holland and his agents have talked before the season that if things weren't going well, they would certainly do their best to accommodate a trade. They've been trying. They just haven't really had much of an offer. It's hard to give a player away. It might get to the point that he may end up going on waivers, to be completely honest, if a team doesn't want to pay a small price to pick him up. But certainly, like I said, with Evander Kane's return tonight, they had to do something. So Yamamoto was moved to long-term injury reserve. Puljujarvi is a healthy scratch to make room in the lineup for Kane. And then obviously moving forward, when Yamamoto comes back, they're going to have to do something else, which is expected that Puljujarvi could be the guy again to maybe have to go to accommodate from a cap perspective. So we'll have to keep our eye on that scenario. I know Montreal, along with Vancouver, there's no real connection to Vancouver, but based on all the stuff we've heard out of Vancouver and Jim Rutherford here and his media availability yesterday saying he wants young players who aren't working out, well, Puljujarvi is the definition of that they could actually pick up for next to nothing and give a shot to see if he can make a fit in Vancouver. No matter where he goes on his next NHL team, he has really solid defensive metrics that could be a help to a lot of clubs and can play on the third line, can pitch in with offense, of course, when he's feeling it and when things work out. But that's the problem, is the offense has been very inconsistent. So obviously the Montreal Canadiens do have a variety of players that they would like to move on from as well. They might be able to find a deal between the two teams from a cap perspective and player personnel perspective that a swap makes sense. Of course, Montreal would have a little bit of flexibility to maybe retain a little bit on some of their guys, whether it's Mike Hoffman or maybe even a guy like Rem Pitlick who just got called up, for example. Could they maybe swap one of them for Puljujarvi, and maybe they can try to even up the money so both teams' cap perspectives are not really impacted a whole lot. Makes sense. Somebody that can, that's probably not in the playoffs, needs to give him a chance, I think, and really it's a prime opportunity to get him off the Oilers for almost nothing. So we'll have to see where that goes. As I mentioned as well with the Canucks, lots of chatter yesterday, but one thing that did come out of it, which was mentioned by Elliot Friedman as well, is I definitely would like to move on from the contract of Connor Garland. Now, he doesn't get a ton of attention because of all the rumors around Captain Bo Horvat and the fact that Horvat's scoring at such a high rate, on pace for well over 50 goals this year. Garland's another player that we could see moved out. The one player who they definitely don't want to trade is Pettersson, and it would also take a massive offer for them to consider trading Quinn Hughes, who's unlikely to get traded as well. But Garland, Besser's a possibility, of course. Horvat's a possibility. Some of the blue liners like a Myers is a possibility as well. Back to Horvat for a second. Friedman's reporting essentially that Rutherford and company there in Vancouver made Horvat a lowball offer in this summer, before Horvat went on a tear this year, having a career season. So if they lowballed him based on his prior, career achievements, I can just imagine how low that offer seems now compared to what he's doing this year. So certainly it seems like they kind of played themselves here and backfired. So if they go to Horvat, they made him the priority to be signed in the offseason. They couldn't get it done because they lowballed him, okay? He says, no thanks. Why don't we just wait? We'll talk about it after the season. I'm willing to bet on myself here that I can, improve my play and get a better contract. So they say, okay, fine. Then they turn their attention to Miller. Miller eventually at the end of the offseason kind of buckles a little bit on his demands, gets the deal that's pretty close to what he wanted. And we have a Miller signing unexpectedly. So now, of course, they have more money tied up. That they, getting Horvat signed for a bigger number is that much more challenging. Horvat comes in, is, obviously scoring at a tremendous rate, deserves the contract and more that Miller got. But of course, now Miller's not playing to that level. So really, they should have just said no, because they couldn't sign Horvat. They should have taken their time with both of them here. Certainly, I think they probably have some regrets if they could go back to Horvat now and increase their price tag to get him signed. That would make more sense. And if Miller was still a pending UFA, you could trade him instead of Horvat. But of course, the value would be lower as well. But I just think that they've gone about this wrong. They kind of played themselves and painted themselves into a pickle in that sense. And I don't like how they're treating Bruce Boudreau. Of course, the comments that Rutherford makes, the other day in his availability, he even said, when asked about tanking and Connor Bedard, he said, I thought we were tanking. He actually said that publicly. It's another shot at Boudreau and the players for that matter. I just don't know, to me, I don't know they know how to treat people there in Vancouver. And I don't like this sign of Rutherford that we haven't really seen in his other, duties with the Penguins and other teams he's worked with before. So to me, the Canucks are just a hot mess. We'll see where things go. Elliot Friedman's also reporting that the Oilers and the Sharks have indeed had conversations around Erik Karlsson. That would be a blockbuster trade to see a guy like Karlsson end up in Edmonton playing with Draisaitl and McDavid. That would be an absolutely insane addition for Edmonton. Now, of course, that's all he said in his blog was that they've had discussions, legit conversations. But from a cap perspective, that would be extremely difficult. San Jose would have to retain a lot of money. It was previously reported that they would retain around 18%. They'd have to retain much more than that, closer to 40, probably 40 to 50. And you would have to have a couple of roster players going out on Edmonton's side to make it work. I assume they would move Tyson Barrie. They don't need Barrie and Karlsson both. Throw in a forward, whether it be Puljujarvi, Foegele, some combination of that. And of course, you'd have to throw in some more attractive assets as well to get Karlsson too. But can you imagine Karlsson on the Oilers with all that offensive talent? That would be an insane thought, but certainly interesting to hear that they've certainly had conversations around it. I do wonder if they'll go back to it and see if they can come up with anything to make it work. But for right now, it seems unlikely, but good to know that they've explored that. John Klingberg, of course, with the Anaheim Ducks, Elliot Friedman and Pierre LeBrun both talked a lot about him in the last number of weeks and months since the beginning of the season. Today, Pierre LeBrun's mentioning that he believes that the Ducks are looking for a first-round pick, and that he believes that they probably won't get it, but he also believes that the Seattle Kraken are a legit place where he could end up. And of course, that was the hope when they signed Klingberg, that they could get him on a one-year deal, flip him for a first-round pick. But he hasn't really played well enough to generate that kind of value. So the Kraken do have multiple second-round picks. Could they maybe offer that? The Kraken are having a wonderful season, and some extra blue line depth ahead of the NHL playoffs would likely be an area of strength that they would look to. So again, I know Friedman and others have kind of linked him to the Kraken way back in the offseason, so it wouldn't be shocking to see him end up there. Of course, we've heard about the Ottawa Senators and their desire to add a defenseman, even a potential rental D-man, even if it means giving up some assets to do it in a scenario where they're not going to the playoffs. Right now, they're out of the playoffs by a good margin. It seems unlikely they could make it in, but if they go on a run, I guess it's possible. But certainly the odds are certainly against them. That's more than fair enough to say. But they want to show the fan base that they mean business. They want to get better, and they want to find a player that they can help improve that blue line. We've talked about Matt Dumba being the player they've been linked to. Another one is Penguins defenseman Pierre-Olivier Joseph. Now the difference there is Joseph is a lefty, Dumba's a righty. I'm not sure if Joseph can play the right side, but certainly that would be the preferred place for any defenseman acquired to chip in and play in a top four role. Obviously, his brother Matthew Joseph was on the Senators, so that would be, I'm sure, quite acceptable from a family perspective. But interesting to see if another young D-man there that they could look to. I know the Penguins are quite likely to move a defenseman. I would think for some potential forward help. The Senators could look to move somebody out of their forward group to make that kind of deal when the time comes. So it'll be interesting to see if he is a guy they continue to keep an eye on. And the Buffalo Sabres are also reportedly trying to shop and find a new home for forward Vinny Hinostroza. He has had a limited amount of NHL action this year, and they're looking to help find him a place where he can play and get a bigger role and get more playing time. So don't be shocked if we maybe eventually see him on waivers if they can't find a trade. But certainly it would be good on them to find him a chance, considering he's certainly qualified by many standards to be an NHL player, just a matter of getting the playing time. But of course, the Sabres have had a lot of other players kind of step up and move ahead of them on the depth chart here this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as well. Of course, that is all your NHL news and rumors for today. So let me know your thoughts on anything discussed, and we'll talk about it further down in the comments. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.